Hello and welcome to episode 6 of Roadkill Entertainment's Video Village. I'm Jay Byrne, and today it's going to be just me because, well, I'm stuck in a interesting little snowstorm, pretty much snowed in here on the East Coast in New Bedford, Massachusetts. And I haven't gone outside and shoveled or anything like that, and I don't plan to do it for a while, so that's kind of the way it's going to work. But today's going to be kind of another catch-up day. I'm going to do a bunch of reviews. I have some stuff that I want to talk about. We're going to talk about shot-on-video horror a little bit. I'm also going to get into a little off-subject from the movies, but then again, this is my show, and I can pretty much talk about whatever I feel like talking about. And it is an analog source, so I'm going to get a little bit into vinyl records, because I've recently gotten into recollecting vinyl. Well, I guess we'll talk about that first. Get that out of the way. And also, I do want to say that not sure if there will be an episode at the beginning of next month yet, because I have nothing scheduled yet. I might just do another catch-up episode if there's something to talk about. But for now, I'm going to do the reviews and talk about a few things today, and this might be the last episode until like the middle of next month. But I've got some stuff on tap that... for some guests and stuff that I want to try to work out. With the weather around here lately, it's been a little tricky to get around, so because it's like every other day we have a major snowstorm. So, well, that's the East Coast in the wintertime, so what are you going to do? But, okay, so, yeah, vinyl records, man. Okay, what the hell is there to say about vinyl records, right? I mean, everyone's probably going like, what the hell are you talking about vinyl for? Well, the show's called Video Village, and like I said, this is an analog format, so it kind of makes sense. Plus, I record a lot of music. I do music for the movies. I'm a musician, and, you know, it's music is kind of part of my life. So I've my buddy, Peter Lambert, who was on the show from Diamond Camp Films a couple episodes back, he has been collecting albums, records, vinyl records, for a million years. He's been collecting them since high school, since back in like 1990. Actually, since earlier than that. He's always had records around him. And I've always been pretty fascinated with records. It actually got me into buying a few records when I was younger. Right before the CD boom, I had the Guns N' Roses Appetite for Destruction record. I had, I don't even remember what the other one I had. I know I had more. I had a few that I had purchased in the early days. I had some like Ozzy records. I had like The Ultimate Sin and stuff like that. But, you know, that kind of all phased out when CD popped up. CD came around and everybody just decided, hey, CD's better. And in a way, CD is better. I mean, there's something about it that's better. I mean, it can capture the audio and the quality a hell of a lot more accurately. Depending on the source, of course. I mean, if you record digital, which most of us do now, I do all the music and for our movies digital. So, I mean, putting that on a vinyl record would be absolutely pointless to put a digital recording on a vinyl record. But they do it, and, you know, people buy it. It's not the kind of vinyl reissue stuff that I'm interested in purchasing. I've noticed, though, stuff that's recorded with the full, like in actual analog, like if it was recorded on tape, if it's like a band from the 70s and it is transferred properly and never touches the digital domain, it's pretty impressive like with a good record player and some decent speakers, what an album can actually sound like. Yeah, you got to deal with the cracks and the popples, you got to deal with the scratches. Although I'll tell you, a decent record player with a weighted tone arm, a properly weighted tone arm, doesn't skip that much. I'm very surprised by that. I picked up income tax time, and, you know, the money, you get a little bit of money here and you don't know what to do with it. Normally I buy a ton of movies or something, but there's been so much stuff that's come out. Actually, it's been kind of a dead period lately for genre releases. There's a ton of crap coming out in a couple of months, but as of right now, there's not a lot of stuff coming out. But so I've been kind of just, you know, waiting around for things, cool things, get things, and I started listening to albums more. I started listening to these records because my friend Peter had given me a bunch of records, and I just started to listen to stuff, and I was like, okay, yeah, this is kind of fun. And And the ritual kind of came back to it. Like, you're looking at the album jack. You take the album out, you put it down. You feel like you have something tangible in your hands. It's very different than like listening to MP3s and stuff, which I am not against digital format at all. I mean, I use it all the time. It's not an issue for me. It's just it's different. There's something different about it. It's something tangible about it. You can smell the record. You can look at the jacket. There's kind of a smell to the cardboard when you take the record out. Like, records bring back memories. I was listening to this video interview online the other day by someone. I can't even remember who. And he brought up a really good point. He said, when people come over and see his record collection, he's got like a crazy record collection, nothing like mine. I mean, I just started again, and I mean, yeah, I probably got about 50 albums or so. But I mean, this guy was insane because he's been collecting for years. But people come over and they see an album in his house, and they take it off the shelf, they look at it, and if it's something that they remembered as from a kid, like say their parents had it or their grandparents had it or somebody they knew had that record, it automatically brings back these stories. Oh man, I remember this. I mean, we bought a bunch of random used records the other day, and we picked up I've been kind of into the Go-Go's lately. I think they're a pretty underrated band from the 80s. The first 3 albums, Beauty and the Beat, Vacation, and Talk Show, are actually really good albums. And so I picked those up on vinyl because they're really easy to find and cheap and really good shape. Most of the ones that I found too. Well, this is to illustrate the point of what I was saying before. My wife, Katie, she had that Go-Go's Talk Show album when she was younger. And I mean, she's holding the album. She said to me, she's like, God, this almost brings me to tears just holding this album and listening to this again. Because I mean, there's so many memories associated with this as a child, holding this record, looking at this album sleeve, playing this record. And I'm like, is there anyone that can say that about an MP3? Maybe a CD. I mean, it's still there a little bit for a CD. But, I mean, there's not that much anyone can really say about that kind of stuff, And I just don't feel that digital media has that same kind of approach. Like, I don't think people are going to be doing that. They're not going to be like, I mean, I got this from the guy that I was listening to, too. He said the same thing, where people aren't going to be like, oh, man, I remember when I downloaded that MP3. No. There's no connection to the band, the music. Plus, I mean, the big difference that I notice is you put on an album, you listen to side 1. You flip it over, you listen to side 2. That's when bands recorded albums, like, stuff like The Wall and Pink Floyd's Dark Side of the Moon. Like, those type of things are albums that are meant to be listened to from beginning to end. Yeah, there are songs on there that became singles, so to speak. But those albums are made to be listened to from beginning to end. So there's just a whole ritual to it that, I picked up, because with my income tax money, I bought a, it's an Audio-Technica. It's a LP120 USB. It's a USB turntable, so I can record into the computer, but it's modeled after a very popular Technics turntable from like the 80s and 90s and stuff like that. It's a DJ table, basically. I mean, there's so much crap on this thing that I don't have any use for half of it. I mean, I press start and stop, put a record on, clean things off. That's about it. I had to figure out how to weight the tone arm and stuff. But there was a process to it, and I'm a technical guy, so I really kind of appreciated that. And I've been going out and buying like inexpensive records, and I'm really surprised at the quality that you can get out of these things. I mean, you go into like a bargain bin at like there's a place called Frugal Frank's in Fall River, Massachusetts. There's a guy there who sells used records. He has a whole entire section of still sealed records. Yeah, the jackets are a little worn, but they're still sealed. Now you open those up. I mean, I got Billy Joel the Stranger. I got the other day I picked up Cheap Trick's first album. The jacket was a bit of a mess, but the record inside was in like perfect mint condition. You clean it off with a little bit of cleaner, and it's amazing that it still works and it still sounds as good as it does. I mean, the record cleaning process can get a bit crazy, and static can be annoying. I don't know, it's just a whole process to it that I really appreciate. I miss an analog era. It's like, you know what I mean, where everything wasn't so digital. I mean, I'm recording this right now onto a handheld digital recorder. It's, there's no big tape reels or a tape recorder that I have to deal with. This, although I do appreciate, though, in this format, digital makes this easier to deal with. You know what I mean? It's a much simpler thing, because for me, if this gets complicated, then I get bored with it. I mean, because I'm sitting down and I'm just telling stories. So, but yeah, so that's my newfound thing. And what's actually kind of cool about getting back into collecting vinyl records. There are these companies now like Death Waltz Records, One Way Static. They're releasing all these horror movie soundtracks in like these collectible packages. Now, they're probably not taking them off of analog masters and properly cutting the records and stuff and whatnot. They're really collectible items. But, I have Last House on the Left from One Way Static that my buddy Mike Welch got me for Christmas, which was freaking awesome. And I just got the Hills Have Eyes soundtrack, which is all the cues and the music from the original Hills Have Eyes movie from 1977. 77, yeah. And I mean, they're cool. They're gatefolds. They got liner notes in them. Like they're very collectible. So, and there's some Twin Peaks ones coming out from Death Waltz Records that I'm really interested in. They've got David Lynch doing. They're doing the Twin Peaks soundtrack and the Fire Walk with Me soundtrack, like a gatefold vinyl with liner notes and original artwork commissioned by David Lynch, which is pretty damn cool, actually. Because I mean, he's a big supporter of that kind of stuff. So. So there's a lot of good stuff out there. Like, and it's from a collector's point of view, if you're bored with the collecting, because I love movies. I've always loved movies. But the hunt is gone. I want a movie, I go to Amazon. I have tons of stuff on pre-order at Amazon. It just shows up at my house or at the UPS thing, and I go pick it up. I mean, it doesn't feel the same. It's not as exciting, like, to get something anymore. And you get that little box with the artwork. Sometimes it's kind of cool. Actually, the Scream Factory ones have been cool because they're giving you some artwork. They're giving you some packaging, something worthwhile. Worthwhile, not wild. I sound kind of illiterate today, so bear with me. But, yeah, so interesting enough, I mentioned Scream Factory. I'll let that segue me into the review section of this episode. I got a couple things to talk about. Actually, there hasn't been a lot of stuff coming out, but I did get the chance to see, and I picked up, we'll go with the horror stuff first, because I mentioned Scream Factory. I got Witchboard and Night of the Demons, 2 big releases by them. Man, these releases are awesome. Not only do the movies look great, actually Night of the Demons is awesome because it's the complete unrated version of the movie. Like, in good quality from beginning to end. The previous DVD that existed was almost like a composite cut of various sources, and the quality changed during like the gore scenes. Now this is like whatever they got like a print or a negative, or it's probably not a negative, but at least a good print, like a print master, and it's the whole movie intact in good quality. So I was pretty psyched about that. They both have both Witchboard and Night of the Demons. They got, now Witchboard doesn't have the cardboard slip that goes over it with new artwork. For whatever reason, they didn't do that one. They didn't consider that one a collector's edition. I don't think it says collector's edition on it. And for whatever reason, they didn't consider that one a collector's edition. But it's got tons of cool stuff. It's got tons of stuff on it. It's got like a 45-minute documentary on the making of it, where they talk to the various people involved. They talk to Kevin Tenney. They talk to, a bunch of people involved. Pretty much everyone involved, even Tawny Katane, which is kind of cool. Well, she doesn't have a hell of a lot to say. There's tons of behind-the-scenes video footage and just this cool stuff related to the original filming of the movie. Night of the Demons has an hour and 15-minute documentary, which is the same thing. They talked to pretty much everybody involved in that movie. Linnea Quigley, Amelia Kincaid, like all the side characters and stuff like that in the movie. And Kevin Tenney, of course, and his producers and writers and stuff. And it's really, really cool. Like, they go pretty deep into the stories of how these movies got made. And there's a lot of stuff going on in the behind the scenes with these movies that I never knew. I never thought about it. Like the fact that the opening credit sequence to Night of the Demons was done by a Disney, a woman that worked for Disney. She was a Disney animator. and they hired her, and she came in and did that because her thing was doing like the Halloween type stuff for Disney. So that whole drawn sequence at the beginning of the movie was done by a Disney animator, which is kind of obvious when you look at it now. But she also, well, no, the movie was originally called Halloween Party, Night of the Demons, and they had some issues with the title because of Halloween. And I guess Mustafa Akkad, they just didn't want them to use Halloween in their title, so they tried to stop them. So they changed the title to Night of the Demons, which I think is a better title anyway. But I mean, they got original posters for Halloween Party, and it's kind of interesting to see. It makes sense that it is a Halloween party. It's kind of a very blunt type of, name for a movie. It's super blunt, but... So those two releases are so worth picking up. If you're a fan of that type of horror, if you're into those type of movies, man, get these movies. They're awesome. They're good. They're great releases. They're worth it. Now I'm going to go into another movie, which is off the subject from horror. It's it's a drama, actually. A movie called The Dallas Buyers Club. Okay. Now, this movie's getting Oscar buzz and stuff right now. I hadn't seen this movie, and my wife, Katie, had been interested in seeing it, and I was like, okay, it looks cool. I like Matthew McConaughey. He's trashy and good in most of the stuff he's in. Man, was this a great movie. It's based on a true story, but it's all about a heterosexual man who contracted AIDS during the HIV and AIDS during the boom, the early 80s, when, people didn't understand AIDS. And this is before he's supposed to, AZT was a drug that people used to take they still do, but they don't take as much of it because it doesn't really, it works to a certain degree. There's a lot of different camps that talk about this drug, and some say it works, some say it just makes things worse. Regardless, this was the drug that they were giving to AIDS patients in the early 80s. I know because I had an uncle that actually died of AIDS, and I'm pretty sure it was probably the drugs that did it to him because I guarantee he was on AZT because that's what they were all taking. So Matthew McConaughey's character, it's basically him dealing with it basically because everybody thinks it's a gay disease, and he's a straight guy, and he caught it from just somebody. And in order to get his drugs, because they're not approved by the FDA, he has to kind of go outside legal channels. So he develops this thing, eventually down the line, called the Dallas Buyers Club. And Jared Leto's in it. He plays like a, what would you call it, transsexual. Right? Yeah, the transsexual. I always get him confused transgender, transsexual, because there's a fine line there. He's a guy dresses up in women's clothing who wants to be a woman. So, but he becomes friends with Matthew McConaughey and works for him. And basically what they do is he gets drugs from like other countries. He does research and finds out that these drugs that actually do work. And a lot of them are just like proteins and vitamins and stuff like that. But they're not approved in the United States, so he has to go and get them. He imports them from other countries and sells them in the United States, and he calls this the Dallas. There are these things called buyers clubs. They were around, I guess, during this time period where if you had AIDS or HIV, you could go to these places and get the drugs that were unapproved in the United States by the FDA. And most of these drugs worked quite well. A lot of the guys that were taking this stuff may still be around. Some of them probably are because, I mean, these were the drugs that were working. What the FDA was approved. I mean, this is all political shit, you know what I mean? It gets crazy, but the FDA, it's all about money, and it's all about politics, and it's all about, who's paying off who. So, but apparently they didn't want this stuff in the United. It's a sad story. It's a sad story, but with a positive ending to a certain degree. It's actually one of the few AIDS HIV movies that actually ended on a relatively positive note. And I like that because they're always kind of negative, you know what I mean? And they always end badly. It's always a bad story. And this is one of the few stories. And I like the fact that this was a heterosexual AIDS story and not like a homosexual one. Not that I have anything against that, because I got nothing against gay people or homosexuals at all. But like, I have friends and family members that were, and I've been around it my whole life. But it always focuses around that when they talk about AIDS. They don't really focus on the heterosexual aspect of it too much. So I thought that was kind of interesting, actually. But yeah, The Dallas Buyers Club, awesome movie, amazing actors. I mean, it's just a really good movie. It's worth seeing if you are interested in that kind of thing. Also, my wife made me watch this movie she got for free from like the Disney Club or something like that. It's a movie called The Proposal with Sandra Bullock and Ryan Reynolds. And I gotta say, I actually really like this movie. It's much different than I thought it was. It's definitely worth a watch. It's a fun movie to watch if you've never seen it. Ryan Reynolds plays, he's an assistant. Sandra Bullock is like this highfalutin, book editor type person. And Ryan Reynolds plays her like pretty much whipped assistant who does everything that she says. Now, basically, she's gonna lose her job, and because she's from Canada and and her visa ran out or something like that, so they're gonna have to deport her. So in order to stay in the country, she needs to, there's one thing she can do. She can get married. So she basically tells her assistant Ryan Reynolds that he has to marry her, and the movie moves on from there, where she ends up having to meet his parents and all this stuff. And of course, it's a romantic comedy, so they end up falling in love with each other and stuff like that. There's more. I don't want to give the whole movie away. I'm kind of spoiler alert there. I'm kind of giving stuff away. But no, I mean, it's a romantic comedy, but it's a better romantic comedy than most of the dreck that you see out there. Typical dreck. This is funny. I mean, Ryan Reynolds is hilarious when he does comedic stuff, and I kind of like Sandra Bullock. I've always liked the movies she's in. I like the Miss Congeniality movies. I don't know. I like The Heat. She was great in that with Melissa McCarthy. I like Sandra Bullock movies. Call me weird, but yeah. So those are the pretty much the new stuff that I got as far as movies are concerned, because there wasn't a lot of. I mean, there was a lot of stuff coming out, but did I buy? Was there any horror that I picked up? I know we talked about what's next on the last episode. Yeah, Yeah, well, that's that. I did. I mean, those are a couple reviews for this week. A few things to check out. Definitely Witchboard, Night of the Demons. Pick those up if you're a horror fan. You will not be disappointed. They're awesome, and they're both full of bonus features and really cool stuff, which I actually watched all of, which sometimes I just don't because I get kind of worn out with all the random whatever bonus features. Oh, another movie that I got, Bad Grandpa. I love Bad Grandpa. We saw that movie in the movie theater, Jackass, and you know what? It's fucking hilarious. If you like the Jackass movies, check it out. Basically, they shot this movie with in the same way they shot Jackass. It was like staged, like gags, and then they tied the gags together with like a sort of like a plot or like something that ties them all together. It's an interesting experiment for a movie, and the movie's freaking hilarious. I haven't got a chance to watch all the bonus features yet, but like all the other Jackass discs, there's like an hour and a half of extra skits and behind the scenes stuff, and I'm sure there's some freaking gems in there that were cut out of the movie. So definitely worth checking out. Bad Grandpa as well. Dallas Buyers Club, amazing movie. See it. It was awesome. The Proposal, I really liked it with Sandra Bullock and Ryan Reynolds. It's worth a watch if you like those type of movies. And who really doesn't like a good comedy or romantic movie? I mean, you kind of soulless if you can't, at least enjoy something like that. But and was there any more? I think that's. Oh, I did see. This is off the subject. This is not. So you can't purchase this yet. But this is a movie that's like just coming out of the theaters. Another Oscar movie. I saw Out of the Furnace with Christian Bale and Casey Affleck. I really enjoyed the movie. Basically, the premise behind the movie is that. How can I say this without? I mean, it's not really giving anything away, but it's about Christian Bale. He's trying to help out his brother Casey Affleck, who's a total loser. He's a war vet. Comes back. It was like an Iraqi war vet, I think, and he ends up kind of like leading a life of crime, getting involved with drugs and getting involved with Willem Dafoe plays like this guy. They do like these underground, almost like Fight Club type things where, ultimate fighting type stuff, where he gets involved in it, and it's dangerous and it's shady, and there's a lot of really messed up people involved. Woody Harrelson's in it, and he plays an amazing role as like this trashy dude, like who just runs this this fighting ring and drug dealer, and I mean, these are some people. The whole thing takes place, trashy people. It takes place in Pennsylvania, and like Pittsburgh, like a steel town. And Christian Bale spends most of the movie trying to help out his brother. And it ends up turning into kind of a revenge drama when something bad happens to his brother, and he goes to get revenge on him. My only complaint with the movie, and I really enjoyed the movie, gritty, trashy, great acting, is that it takes, like, it doesn't know what it wants to be. It doesn't know if it wants to be a drama or if it wants to be a revenge movie, because it spends more than half the movie just on the straight dramatic elements, which is fine because the actors are great and the story is good. But then it turns into a revenge drama. And it ends really well. But, like, I don't know. I feel like the movie wanted to be like a Rolling Thunder, and it really wasn't. You know what I mean? But it's a good movie. It's worth checking out. It's a little bit long-winded if you have the patience for that kind of stuff. I feel like there's an awesome movie in the movie. But it could have been constructed or edited a little better. There's this thing, I was talking to my wife about it. With modern movies now, it's either all flash or all actors showing off. Which American Hustle was all actors showing off. So, like, when you deal with the movies where it's all actors showing off, it's like they barely have a story there, but it's the actors doing their thing. Which, when you got good actors and you've got some decent drama, it can be a good thing. People can do it. It can be not a bad thing. But I feel like it's becoming like a wank fest, you know what I mean? Like, I'm better than you, you're better than me. It's like a pissing contest between actors, where you're just watching these actors do their thing, but there's not much of a movie there. I'm all for a good drama as long as there's a story there and there's something engaging going on. It was an engaging movie, but it didn't know what it wanted to be. It didn't know if it wanted to be an exploitative, like, revenge drama, or if it wanted to be a dramatic, trashy life story. But it has elements of both, and it's definitely worth seeing. The actors did a great job. Casey Affleck is awesome. He's a very underrated actor, and I don't think he gets the credit he deserves. His brother Ben gets a lot of credit, but, like, I don't know. He's an amazing actor. He's great in everything I see him in. He always plays like a trashy character, but he does such a good job at it. But, yeah, so that's another one to check out. If you want to, go into it with caution. It's a little draggy, but it does have moments that are worth it in the movie. Out of the Furnace with Christian Bale and Casey Affleck. All right, so that kind of covers up the review portion of this episode, because there wasn't a lot to review. So I'm going to go into, I guess, our topic for the episode, although this episode's kind of all over the map. Shot on video horror from the 80s. There's this whole resurgence now of it's almost like a hipster trend of getting back into VHS, which fits very well with our Video Village title. So this is a good subject. Getting into VHS films. Movies that were shot solely with video cameras. Now, I shot some stuff back in high school. Me and my buddies, Peter Lambert and other people that were hanging out with us, Liza Bigley, Gretchen Babbitt, we shot a ton of movies that were shot on, like, short films that were shot on low-grade VHS cameras. And, I was never really inspired by, I guess, me and Peter talked about this a little bit, I think, about the shot on video stuff. They weren't really an inspiration to us, but we watched a lot of it. Some of them were bad, some of them were good. There was so many of these movies that came out, but there's a resurgence of almost like a hipster resurgence. I hate using that word, but it's true. Of people getting into these shot on video movies now, and there's companies that are putting them out. Straight VHS. I mean, none of this stuff is ever coming out in HD because it was shot in lower than SD in some cases. So yeah, so I don't know. I've always liked these kind of movies, and there's a handful of them that I've seen that, to me, still hold up. One of the big ones that, actually, one of the ones that started the whole trend was a movie called Blood Cult, which is not a very good movie. You can track it down if you want to. It's kind of like a cop drama with some gore in it, and it's shot on like what looks like soap opera sets. and stuff like that. There's another one from the time period, a movie called 555 that's big in kind of like a cult sense because it was a harder movie to find. It's gory, but the movie is, oh my God, is it painful to get through. I mean, these movies got distribution, which was kind of cool to us because we always thought, hey, maybe we can get put out, you know what I mean? That's Black Devil Doll from Hell, which was Chester Turner, I think. I can't remember the guy's name, but well, I think it might be Chester Turner. But that was shot on super low-grade video to the point where the rainbow lines from the edits are still in the movie. I mean, it looks like a fifth-generation copy of the master. And, I mean, there's, like, really bad slow-mo in it and stuff, but it's funny to watch. And they redid Black Devil Doll. They made a movie called Black Devil Doll, which is kind of a redo of Black Devil Doll from Hell. It's not the same movie, though. Black Devil Doll from Hell was a low budget. I mean, you could get this at, like, a Blockbuster, for God's sakes. This stuff was available. And it always amazed me that this stuff got out there. But those are the ones, I mean, they get attention because they're part of that whole scene. But there were some good movies that came out of there. One that we watched growing up that I remember specifically was a movie called Sledgehammer. And that movie, not the TV show, although nobody probably remembers that, but people who grew up in the 80s. No, it was a horror movie called Sledgehammer. It was a slasher movie about a bunch of kids that go and hang out at this house, and they're getting killed off one by one by the ghost of some kid or this murderer who lives in the house. And the movie's not amazing, don't get me wrong, but it's a lot of fun to watch. And this movie like kind of epitomizes that era. It's got, you know, I don't know, it's just got that low grade, low budget shot. But they kind of knew what they were doing when they made the movie. It seemed like it was, I think I read something was made by people who made actual film, but they just decided it was cheaper to do this, so they actually did this. There's a lot of cool stories behind some of these movies, actually. That's a good one. That's a fun one to watch, Sledgehammer. That's kind of what started it for me. Like, me and Peter saw this movie growing up, and we were kind of like, okay, this is interesting. Movies, I mean, these are really low-grade movies. They're shot on, like, video cameras. But they were kind of fun to watch in that way. And they had, like, cheesy kind of... They were regional movies. They had, like, kind of bad acting. But they were fun because they were all just, like, people that knew the filmmakers, basically. Well, in some cases. But one of my favorites from the era, actually, is a movie called Video Violence. This movie is pretty cool. This is one to hunt down if you've never seen it. Video Violence actually is it's story of like this V8. It's actually kind of a cool because it surrounds itself around a video store, an 80s style video store, you know, wood paneled and all that. This video store that rents out these horror movies, and this is like I don't know if it's a teacher or a writer. I can't remember what this guy. No, it's the guy who runs the video store. Yeah, and you know. People are coming in and asking for these tapes. That he starts getting these tapes returned to the video store with stuff recorded on them. And he ends up realizing they're like, people are recording over the pre-recorded VHS tapes that he's renting. They're recording these bad little made-for-video horror movies, but it looks like the murders in them might be real. So the whole movie is he's trying to just figure out what's going on. There's actually a really good plot that could be remade that, you know, could be done on a big budget level. But I mean, I like this movie anyway, so they don't need to touch it. And so he starts investigating this, and come to find out, you know, there's this whole group of people who are filming like snuff films in their basement. It's like the townspeople. I'm not going to give away the whole thing because it's kind of fun the way the movie plays out. But that's the general gist of the movie, and I love this movie, man. I've always been a fan of Video Violence. Like, it's just one of those movies I discovered during that time period when I was watching these movies, just out of high school. I got into discovering some of these movies a little bit more, and it's well worth picking up. Camp Motion Pictures put it out on DVD with Video Violence 2, actually. You can still find it. You can find it now. But these movies were like impossible to find for years, but they were a lot of fun to watch. So Video Violence is another one. There's so many of these movies. It just keeps going. Another one that we saw during that time period was a movie called Cannibal Campout. Now, Cannibal Campout is also available from, I think it was Camp Motion Pictures. And that's a great friggin' movie, Cannibal Campout. That movie just like, I don't know. It deals with, it's a group of kids who go out in the woods. They kind of take the plots, these movies, they kind of took the plots a bunch of local people would take the plot of something that was popular, like a Friday the 13th or something like that, and make their own version of it, but go like way crazier and way gorier. Because this movie's really gory. And you get a bunch of kids that go out in the woods and they get basically like killed off by these like backwoods like hick type people. And this movie was just fun to watch. It's really gory, it's crazy, it's silly. It's got a lot of humor in it as well. Just grabbing some water there, sorry. But yes, that's a good one. This is almost like a checklist that I'm laying off today, because there's not a lot to say about these movies other than they're worth seeing if you're into this kind of stuff. So what do we got? We got Blood Cult. Don't bother with Blood Cult. Blood Cult, it started the whole thing, but it's a terrible movie. 555 is kind of a boring friggin' movie to watch too. Although for, some people like to watch that, see that movie they're hard to get your hands on though too. A lot of these movies have been released on DVD from small companies. You can find them on Amazon and stuff like that. You're not gonna find them in a store probably, unless you live by a Newberry Comics or something, and they have a few of them in the horror section. Then, Video Violence 1 and 2, awesome movies. They're worth checking out. Now we move on to Cannibal Holocaust. Not Cannibal Holocaust. Cannibal Holocaust is a great movie, don't get me wrong. Cannibal Campout. And that's a fun movie too. Another fun one to watch. Some of my favorites, though, from that era. There's a movie called Bloodletting, all right? There's a small company called Alternative Cinema that was releasing these, like, kind of shot-on-video style movies. J.R. Bookwalter, actually, was, like, a producer and had a lot to do with this company. And they used to have a magazine called Alternative Cinema as well. They used to come out. They had their whole little world. They were kind of like a Troma or a Full Moon Entertainment, because they had their whole little world of actors and, in low-budget movies. And there's still a lot of them. A lot of these people are making movies today, like people like Misty Monday, if you ever heard of her. But she's involved. She's an actress, like a scream queen. She still does a lot of this type of stuff, almost like softcore porn, but they're not porno movies. But she was in some of these like horror themed ones that were earlier. Actually, there's a movie called Bloodletting. It's with stars this girl named Ariana Albright, who there's something about her. She's very watchable. I don't know. I kind of like watching her and stuff. And the whole movie, the basic plot of Bloodletting is that this girl wants to be a serial killer. So she hunts down, she finds a local serial killer, and she basically talks him into teaching her to be a serial killer. That's the plot of the movie. And it's a lot of fun. And it's kind of like a romance story between the two leads, like the serial killer and the girl. Because, they have common interests, obviously. And they go with that a little bit. So they try to go with that, like, domestic drama, like humor and drama a little bit with the characters. And it gets funny at times because, jealousy kind of plays into the story a little bit and stuff like that. I always love this movie, Bloodletting. It's a great movie. It came out from Alternative Cinema, AC, and I think you can still get your hands on it relatively cheap on Amazon. Well, Bloodletting is one to check out. Another one came out around the same time with some of the same actors. A movie called Original Sins, although this movie is near impossible to find. This is the weirdest movie in the world, Original Sins, because I really like it. The first 3/4 of the movie are great. The last, 20 minutes of the movie kind of suck. So that's kind of the way these movies were, though. Like, there were things in them that you could like about them, but they weren't like 100% good. There was things about them that were really bad, and there was things about them that were pretty cool. So you kind of balanced it out. Back in the 80s and stuff like that, and in the early 90s, like, horror fans, we were okay with that. It's different now. Horror fans are always, it's got to be like perfect, or they don't like it. They don't just go and have fun with things anymore. They can't just find. The horror community is interesting, and I consider myself a part of it, but I think I have a better approach towards things because I'm a filmmaker, and I can kind of watch something and find the good in it as well. You know what I mean? I can watch a sort of bad movie and find the things that are good about it, and like the things that are good about it, and still watch it again, even though there are things that maybe suck really badly. But these movies fall into that thing, the shot-on-video horror movies. There are some that are really I don't think any of them are really good, but they're all decent movies to watch. They're the ones that I've seen. They're not amazing by any means, but they're fun to watch. And like I said, that movie Bloodletting is a great movie. It's got some fun acting in it. It's got some fun stuff going on. Original Sins now is the movie I was talking about. This movie is just it's the whole concept of the movie is these Catholic school girls, okay, get visited by a guy that they think is Jesus Christ, who's basically like raping them and having sex with them. And the whole movie is they think he's like the second coming of Christ. So they do everything he says. Like they tells him to go out and kill people. Actually, he's kind of vague. He doesn't tell them that they figure it all out themselves and they do dumb shit. And without giving too much away, well, you're not going to find this movie probably anyway, but so maybe I should say spoiler alert. It basically turns out that this guy is an alien from another planet, and he's just using them for his own pleasure and his own whatever. He's just, and they're just these dumb Catholic schoolgirls who think they found Jesus, and they're going along with it. It's a fun movie. It's a lot of fun to watch. If you can find it, I mean, good luck finding it, because I have myself, I transferred my own personal VHS copy that I owned, that I bought from Something Weird Video when they put it out, and I can't find this movie anymore. I don't know. It's never been put out on DVD officially, so I don't know. If you can find an old VHS of it or a transfer somewhere, that might be worth it. But yeah, it's a cool movie though. It's worth checking out. There are some things in it that are actually very entertaining. But okay, there's more here. This just keeps going. This list goes on and on. All right, another movie that I really liked is a movie directed by a guy named Scooter McCrae. It's a movie called The Shattered Dead. Shattered Dead is a cool movie. It's actually probably one of the first couple of like. It has kind of a Walking Dead thing going on now that I think about it. But the whole concept of the movie is that you become infected. It's a zombie movie. But you become infected and you turn into a zombie, but you're still you. You're still a person. So it's a world where the zombies are trying to live together and deal with the fact that they're falling apart and they're zombies. It's a cool concept, actually. And you know, you deal with the main villains of the movie are like this right-wing religious group who basically think it's the end of the world and stuff like that. And they're the ones trying to stop this group. They're the ones bothering this group of like zombies who are just trying to live. They're just people. They're falling apart. They're dealing with the fact that they're falling apart. It's a cool movie. And I know I keep saying it's a cool movie. It's a cool movie, but it is. It's a good movie. And it's definitely worth checking out. I think you can find The Shattered Dead. A guy named Scooter McCrae made it, and he's been involved in a few things like behind the scenes stuff. He does documentaries for Blu-rays and DVDs sometimes. His name pops up on a lot of stuff. But he was part of this. There was this whole scene of almost like these actors and these directors. So they all kind of sometimes like they'd end up in each other's movies. Another movie. Wood Chipper Massacre is another one. I mean, as you can tell, I watched a lot of these movies. Wood Chipper Massacre is a fun one. It kind of plays off like the freaking Brady Bunch, but then these kids get left home and something ends up happening. Somebody gets killed in a wood chipper and they got to cover it up. I don't remember the whole movie, but there's some funny shit in the movie. It's very silly. It's mainly comical. I mean, there was some comedy stuff that came out around that time, too. I can't remember a lot of it, but there was some stuff that focused more on the comedy element. This is like comedy horror. Wood Chipper Massacre is a fun one to watch. You can still find that one. I think Camp Motion Pictures put that one out. And then we get to the bottom of the barrel, folks. A movie called Death Nurse. Death Nurse 1 and 2. They are fun to watch, but man, are they inept as far as like filmmaking is concerned. All about this woman who is a nurse. She's just killing people. There's not much of a plot to the movie. I can't really remember the plot now that I think about it. She's crazy, and she thinks she's a nurse. She's like a mental patient who thinks she's a nurse or something like that, and she's just killing people off. And it's this small town, and I don't know. The two movies are basically the same. There's a 1 and a 2. And actually, my buddy Pete edited the two movies together and cut all the flashbacks back because they put flashbacks from a movie called Criminally Insane, which isn't even has nothing to do with this movie at all. But they were using that storyline to tell the same story of the nurse. They're two different filmmakers, wait, no, I don't know if they're different filmmakers. They might be the same filmmaker, but they're unassociated. And this movie goes for big bucks. It's like $500 on Amazon now. The DVDs that came out, because they were limited, they were put out by the company. There was a limited amount of them put out. Yeah, if you can find it for free, I don't advocate piracy by any means, but if you can find this for free and watch it, don't spend any money on it. But it's oh my god, the acting is insane in this movie. It is like, I don't even know how this movie got made. These two. You can cut the two of them together and make one movie out of them that's a hell of a lot more interesting than watching both movies back to back, but they're pretty funny to watch. Death Nurse 1 and 2. God, I've gone through like 10 movies already, and I just keep coming to mind. I just keep, oh yeah, and then this one, and then this one. Obviously, you can see there were so many of these movies that came out. But I'm trying to think of another one. There's a whole bunch of them. That came out. I can't remember. I know there's more. I know there are ones that I'm missing, and I think I've run out of steam on this subject matter. But let's just say, there are a ton of shot-on-video horror movies, and they're a lot of fun to watch. You can find them relatively cheaply if you go looking for them. You kind of need to know names to do it. So I got some names here. Sledgehammer, Bloodletting, Original Sins, Death Nurse 1 and 2, Shatter Dead, Cannibal Campout, Blood Cult if you want to go there, 555 if you want to go there. I mean, there's so many more. I'm sure there's ones that I even talked about that I can't remember right. Oh, Video Village 1 and 2. One of the better ones, actually. The Wood Chipper Massacre. I mean, these are all crazy little movies that were done for like no money. Some, actually, surprisingly, some of them cost more money than you would think they would cost, but most of them were done for like little to no money, and they're a lot of fun to watch. And it's a whole era. I grew up with the era. Now it's like a hipster era where people are kind of coming back to it, and they're collecting VHS tapes, and they don't want to watch anything that's not on VHS, which is kind of stupid. It's kind of like the whole vinyl thing. It goes back to the vinyl subject matter. Wow, I connected two things here. You've got the audiophiles who I don't listen to anything but vinyl. I'm not one of those people. I will listen to CDs. I will listen to MP3s. Not everything on vinyl is the best that it can be. But I'm an audiophile, and I like to hear good quality stuff, and it's kind of fun. The ritual of playing records is kind of fun. But off the record subject. Back on the shot on video, but that's the list. There are tons of movies there, and I suggest to hunt out some of these movies and watch them if you have a curiosity. You might kind of form a little bit of an addiction to it, and all of a sudden you want to just keep watching these movies. So it's kind of crazy. But yeah, so that's shot on video horror, man. I can't think of anything else to say about these movies other than that they're fun to watch. But there isn't really an incidents progress report this week. We're going into, in a couple of days, we have, I guess this is a small progress report. In a couple of days, we're finally getting into rehearsals for the movie. So there'll be more to talk about once we start doing that. We're still working on the script. We're getting into rehearsals, but things are moving forward. Like I said, I'm not sure if there'll be an episode at the beginning of next month. There might be. It might just be me again, coming up with a subject matter. Maybe I'll get Mike down here, and if I don't have a guest, maybe I'll get Mike down here, and me and Mike can just riff on some stuff, come up with some subjects, and just talk about it. That's always fun. But yeah, I think we're running just under an hour here, a little shorter than usual, but that's the episode for this time. This is episode 6 of Video Village, right? Yeah, I said episode 6. Yeah, it's episode 6 of the Video Village podcast. And as always, you can check out Roadkill Entertainment at jayburn75.wix.com/Roadkill Entertainment. That's our movies. And after all this talk about shot on video horror, we're doing stuff low budget on our own. And that's our own version of shot on video horror, I guess. So check out our stuff, and we're trying to, put ourselves a little above that level, but we're probably falling into that level in some ways too. But we made our 2 movies, Hometown, You Better Watch Out. I like them. I think they're good, and I think people should check them out. So yeah, that's it for this time, and I hope you enjoyed the episode, and take care, and I'll be talking to you soon. Bye.